Hey, friends! Just so you know, we enjoy the swear word and we rely on good old fashioned humor to get through some seriously dark subject matter. At no time do we intend any disrespect toward the victims or families of the victims in the cases we cover. Also, be sure to listen to the end for a few palate cleansing bloopers to reset your mindset. And with that, we thank you for listening and we hope you enjoy.
Hey, friends. Welcome to Crime Will Tell. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Carrie.
This case is filled with all kinds of things: manipulation,
Hmm.
betrayal,
Ooh,
deceit, and some crazy twists. And it
okay.
just absolutely highlights how one lie can snowball into a
Oh,
thousand lies and how devastating the impact can be when all of those lies unravel. This is
oh.
truly one of the, wildest stories that I've ever heard. So, we're definitely gonna need to be drinking for this case. What you sipping on over there?
I have myself some Angel's Envy because I'm still
Ooh.
working through everything in my cabinet so that I can
Yeah,
go to
that's okay.
Grainworks and get some samplers because I'm really
Nice.
excited to do that. Yeah. So I've got Angel's Envy. What do you have?
I am drinking Driftless Glen bourbon.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's really good, and this is a bourbon that's actually from Wisconsin. Um, but so I'm drinking this Driftless Glen. I almost wanna say Driftless Gwen. I'm drinking this I'm drinking Leo's
I'm drinking this Dwiffers Gwen.
some Driftless Glen Stefani. Um, so I'm drinking this Driftless Glen with some ginger ale tonight.
Oh,
Anyway, cheers to you, my friend.
cheers.
Clink.
Clink.
So I'm going to start by telling you about 32-year-old Zoraida Bartolome.
That's a wicked cool name.
Yeah, right? And her husband, 38-year-old Alberto Rolone. The couple lived in a super cute little house on a quiet street in Romeoville, Illinois. It's a village with around maybe like 40,000 residents, and it's just southwest of Chicago, like just on the outskirts of Chicago. And this couple had two adorable young sons. They had 9-year-old Adriel and 7-year-old Diego, which I just think are so cute and they are
Adorable.
precious. Yeah. Zoraida worked in quality control at a manufacturing company, and Alberto worked at a liquor distribution company.
Mm,
And she worked the day shift, he worked the night shift. I'm not really sure why. I'm assuming it might have been so
the
somebody was
kids.
always home with the kids,
Sure.
but that was kind of their routine.
Or that's just the way it was.
It's true. On Sunday, September 17th of 2023, Romeoville police received a call from Zoraida's mother, and she was expressing concern about her daughter's well-being. She had tried calling Zoraida all day, but she never answered or returned any of her mother's calls, which was really unusual. I think that they typically spoke, or she was at least quick to respond. And when they couldn't reach Zoraida's husband, Alberto, either, the family became increasingly
Mm.
worried. They also had learned that Alberto didn't show up for his shift that day at work.
Oh,
So
not
they're
good.
like, shit. And this was also very unusual. I mean, he wasn't one to show up at work late or just not show up at all. He was punctual and reliable. So they're like, something's going on. And this is a situation I can just picture the panic setting in for this family. You know, their mother was like reaching out to the other children, asking, like, have you talked to your sister Zoraida? I'm worried. And then everybody's trying to reach either her or her husband. And just like with every call that they're not able to get a response, like the worry is just building. And so that evening, Zoraida's mother, she contacted police and she requested that a wellness check be completed for her daughter and her family. I don't know that I couldn't get information as well if her mom lived there. I'm assuming she either wasn't able to or wasn't close enough that she could just drive over there and make sure that they were okay. So she ended up calling, but I couldn't figure out where her family resided. So, police officers were dispatched to the family's home around 8:45 that night. And there is police body cam footage from the officers from that night if you're interested in watching it. But I'm going to kind of describe what happened and what's seen on that footage. So, as police were approaching the house, there were cars parked out in the driveway, which is usually a pretty good indicator that someone's home. And so, these officers walk up, they knock on the front door, and no one answered. And there really didn't seem to be any sort of activity going on inside of the home. So, in this video, you can see the officers, they're like shining their flashlights around the yard and around the cars, just kind of looking for anything suspicious. And they're trying to look into some of the windows of the home. Most of the lights were off inside, and there were closed curtains on a lot of the windows, so they wouldn't have been able to see anyway. But they were able to look in through a window on the front of the house, and they were able to see that a coffee table and a TV in the living room had been knocked over. So
Mm.
they're immediately like, something's not right. So they then decided to kind of walk around the house. They made their way around to the back of the house, and there was like a covered porch area, like you can like walk in through kind of a screen door, and then there's a
Okay.
covered area, and then there's like a main back door. But out
Okay.
there was like, I think, like a porch swing maybe, and some
Oh,
storage
how
stuff, like where you would
nice.
keep like toys for the kids to take in and out, things like that.
Okay.
The screen door on the back of the house was unlocked. So the police were able to get into this like covered porch area. And inside that porch was the door that led into the home. And then there were some windows on the back of the house that they were able to see in. And the screens on those windows had been cut, which was another just kind of like, ugh, okay.
Mm.
And as one of the officers was looking inside one of the windows, they just said like, "Oh God!" And you could see them immediately back out of the porch area and
Oh,
call for more units to come to the home.
oh, that's not a good thing. That's not good.
I do want to make a quick disclaimer on this one that there is violence towards animals and there is also violence towards children. This stuff can be a little bit tough.
Yeah.
So, having said that, as this officer was looking into the home, they could see a lot of blood, and two of the family's dogs were lying dead on the kitchen floor. So they're like, holy shit, let's regroup. We need to back up and figure out what we're going to do here. So the officers that were on the scene initially went to their vehicle. They began getting shields and assault rifles and, just more tactical gear because they didn't know if there was an armed person in the house. They
Exactly.
needed to protect themselves. And they also wanted to wait for additional officers to arrive before they entered into the home. So, fully armed, some officers stayed out front and they, watched the front doors of the house while another group made their way back to the back door where they had been.
Okay.
They checked the door and it was unlocked. So they were able to easily enter the home. And
Oh
once
my.
inside, and they kind of moved into the house a little bit, they found Alberto Rolone lying dead on the floor in the hallway. One of the bedroom doors had been kicked down. Inside the bedroom, Zoraida was found dead on the floor with her hands covering her face, and their two young sons were lying dead on the bed. They had all been shot, and there were a total of 20 gunshot wounds between all of the victims.
Oh my God, this was an annihilation.
Yeah, this was an absolute massacre.
Did you say Zoraida's hands were covering her face? Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah,
And both of the children?
yeah. There were dozens of shell casings from a 9mm handgun found throughout the house. Furniture had kind of been, knocked over and some random items had been broken, but there didn't seem like there'd been a major struggle inside of the house. And on the living room wall, police noticed that someone had attempted to write a message in spray paint, but only a capital letter F had been written before. It looked like the can of paint must have like really crapped out on them and it stopped working, because even the F is a little like, you could tell they tried like multiple times and it was faded. But it appeared pretty much out of the gate that things had been staged to look like a robbery. Based on the evidence found at the scene and the locations of the bodies inside of the home, investigators were able to piece together what likely happened that night. They believed that the murder took place somewhere between 9 p.m. the night before and 5 o'clock that next morning. Alberto was likely awake when the intruder entered the home. He was used to working nights, so he was typically up late. Zoraida and their two sons were sleeping in their bedroom. Apparently, one or maybe both of the boys had been having a lot of issues sleeping prior to that. And so sometimes they would end up sleeping in their parents' bed, and a lot of times with their mom because their dad was probably at work. So, but they would sleep better with their parents. So that's kind of where they ended up sometimes. And that was the case that night.
Reminds me, they were 9 and 7.
Hmm.
My God. Okay. I have two boys. If I bawl my eyes out in this episode, I apologize. This is fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah, this is rough. Alberto likely heard the intruder entering through the back door of the house and, made his way to that part of the house to investigate. As he came face to face with the attacker, he turned to run back toward the bedroom to protect his family. But he was shot and injured in that hallway, and
Mm.
he was shot 5 more times before he could actually get to them. So he
So
ended
he
up
had a total of
dying.
6 gunshot wounds in his
Yeah,
body?
and he ended up
Okay.
dying like in the hallway where the bedrooms were.
Oh my
Zoraida
God.
had obviously been woken up by the gunshots and the commotion, and she'd actually locked the bedroom door. Like she'd gotten
Smart.
up and locked the bedroom door. The intruder tried to break down the door, but ended up shooting through the door, striking her multiple times and killing Zoraida as she fell to the floor
So now we've got two innocent, defenseless young children
in a
in that
room.
bedroom that are
Yes.
fucking freaking
Yes.
out at this point.
The boys were then shot and killed on the bed where they were sleeping. They had both been shot twice in the head, and one of them was wearing a sleep mask to cover his eyes, and the other was holding a stuffed animal. And that image just fucking kills me. So the family's three dogs had been obviously scared by the gunshots and the commotion, and they had scratched at the front door of the house trying to get outside. Two of them had been shot and killed in the kitchen. Like I'd said, the officers were able to see them when they peeked in, and the third dog was found in one of the bedrooms. I can't imagine that scene. Whenever there's animals and whenever there's
Yes.
kids,
The most
I fucking
innocent of
can't.
victims that
Yeah.
never did anything to anyone. They're just caught up in the crossfire, so to speak.
Yeah. And I'm a fucking animal lover, and I know other people are probably wondering, but there was no information about the names or the breeds of these dogs. Zoraida's family, like I'd said, had been worried that whole day. And so her brother, again, didn't have any information about him. I don't know his name. I don't know how far he had to drive, but he decided to go check on the family himself. And when he turned on their street, there were already police cars all over in front of their house. And I feel for him so much. I cannot imagine how gut wrenching that must have been for him. I mean, being so worried about people you love, and then that moment when your worst fears are confirmed. And so like there's so many pieces of this case, and I'm like, God damn it. Just I can't. So, I mean, of course, police ended up speaking with neighbors, but nobody in their neighborhood had seen or heard anything suspicious. And with the number of shots fired inside the home, it seemed really likely that a silencer was probably used.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, I mean, the houses in this neighborhood were close together, and
Okay.
someone would have heard that many shots in the middle of the
Had to
night.
have.
There's no way. The couple had purchased their home less than 6 months before. They hadn't lived there that long, so people hadn't really gotten a chance to know them well. But neighbors told police that they were like an incredibly nice, just quiet couple. And by all accounts, they seemed like just a happy, kind of perfect little family. Zoraida's brother told investigators that the family didn't own any guns and that he couldn't think of anyone who would want to hurt any of them. But I mean, this really appeared to be a targeted attack on the family, not just a random robbery that went
Yeah.
wrong. So the police are looking, at all this information, trying to figure out a motive. And neither Zoraida nor Alberto had any sort of criminal history. They weren't involved with drugs. And the couple was doing well financially. So it didn't seem like those motives
Hmm.
would have been part of this. And a murder suicide was ruled out because obviously no gun was found inside the home. And just the wounds of the family and how they were found just didn't add up to that. Police spoke with some of Zoraida's coworkers, and she had actually confided in one of them that she had been getting threatening text messages leading up to the murders. They also learned that Zoraida had been having an affair with one of her
Oh,
coworkers.
motherfucker.
She had been seeing 32-year-old Nathan Huey Jr. since May of 2023. So this was just like about 4 months before the murders. They worked together at Avanti Engineering, which is a company that manufactures machine parts. And they hit it off and began seeing each other. And the threatening texts that she had received were related to her affair with Huey, which is what I'm going to call him from here on out because I
Huey.
didn't. Yeah, that's his last name.
Were the text messages from Huey or were they from somebody that knew about the affair?
They were from some random number. She had no idea who they were coming from. And these messages were warning her that she was putting her children in danger by seeing Huey, that he was a dangerous person and that her children were at risk. Just kind of ominous and now incredibly sad knowing what happened. But we're going to kind of like come back to those
Okay.
texts in a little bit. Zoraida struggled with remaining faithful to her husband Alberto, and this was pretty common knowledge to the people around them. She had had multiple affairs in the past, but Alberto always chose to stay with her because he thought that it was what was best for their sons.
Oh
And
my gosh.
she chose to stay married to Alberto to keep their family intact, which I hate everything about this.
He sounds like an amazing human.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw any of this in your research. Maybe they had an arrangement. Maybe they had an understanding or an agreement that she could step out of the marriage.
I don't know that he was like, do whatever you want. Because I was looking for that. I was like, was it just an arrangement? Like, we're going to stay married, but you do your
You were
thing,
like,
I'll do
okay, and you
mine.
weren't able to.
No, I do know that he was aware of the affairs. He chose to stay.
Okay. The only reason why I ask and bring that up is because, in my opinion, infidelity is not cool. And that's because if it were to happen in my own relationship, I would not be down with it. But what works and doesn't work for me is not like some couples are okay with an open marriage. And if that is
Right.
cool with both consenting individuals
Yeah.
in the relationship, live your best life. So I am not poo pooing what Zoraida was doing because I don't know if they had an understanding. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like there was a one-sided open relationship.
Mm,
And I don't know
Mm.
if that was their understanding and that was their arrangement, or if that was just what was happening and he was like, I'm not leaving because of my boys, and that was just
Okay.
that. So
Okay.
I really don't know.
Ay, ay, ay.
Her relationship with Huey seemed different than her previous affairs. She had apparently told her sister that he was her soulmate and that they were like Romeo and Juliet.
Okay.
And the feelings might have been mutual for Huey because police found a handwritten note from Zoraida in his work area at their place of business that said, "You mean so much to me. Like, I don't think you understand how much I actually love you." He just had this posted from Zoraida in his like work area. It didn't seem like they were very discreet at
Mm-mm.
work, and I think a lot of people that they worked with knew that they had a romantic relationship. They didn't seem to be very secretive about it.
Okay, so Zoraida was full on in love with Huey.
Yeah. Yeah, to her this was different for
This was
her.
her soulmate. This was something she had never experienced or felt before.
Yeah,
Okay, and with that comes super intense emotions. Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
And so obviously investigators were like, we need to talk to this fucking guy.
Yeah.
So they went to his work to speak with him. And he was honest with them, about them having a romantic relationship. And, officers asked if he had anything to do with the murders. He said no. And there is body cam footage of this whole exchange too. Like there's so much footage in this case. It's crazy. And in fact, he said that Zoraida was an angel and a very sweet girl, and that his connection with her was different and that he had strong feelings for her. So it seemed like he was into her as well. But to make things even shittier and more complicated, they learned that Huey had a fiance.
Mm.
He was engaged to 50-year-old cougar Ermelinda Palomo.
Irma Linda Paloma. That's a great name.
Palomo.
And Palomo. So Irma Linda Palomo.
Hmm.
Get it, girl.
Yeah, and they had been in a relationship for 8 years.
8 years. Fuck.
Yeah, yeah,
So
since
wait, how
2015,
old was Huey? 32?
and she is
So he
50. They
was
were,
fucking 24 years old and she was 42? Damn.
so they lived together in Streamwood, Illinois, which was another town just outside of Chicago, with some of Ermelinda's 5 grown children. Fun. That sounds awesome. And she had 5 grandchildren as well, but I'm not sure if any of the grandkids lived there too. I couldn't figure out who all
Okay.
actually lived in the home. In a lot of stories, just like if anyone decides to look into this, they were technically engaged, but in certain interviews and things, Huey refers to Ermelinda as his wife.
Oh,
And
interesting.
I
Okay.
think I think that they'd had a ceremony, maybe at a church or something, but they never made it like legal.
Oh,
But
okay.
so they were technically engaged, but sometimes they'll say like fiance, sometimes it's wife, whatever. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. So police learned that Huey had a criminal record. He had actually been charged with battery in
Mm.
2016. I couldn't figure out any details on what happened, but he was charged with battery and he had multiple DUIs. So,
Mm.
following an aggravated DUI charge in 2017, I'm not really sure what that is, but he ended up serving 30 days in jail and then was on house arrest for a certain amount of time and then had 2 years of probation after that.
So he has a drinking issue.
Yeah. And they also learned that he had once owned a private security business called Black Bear Security, and he apparently loved guns and he owned lots of
Uh-oh.
them and liked to post pictures of himself with all of his little gun babies on
Uh-oh.
social media. And one of those pictures appeared to show a suppressor on one of his guns.
Uh-oh.
Just a little piece. Even though, as of 2017, he was legally not supposed to be in possession of any firearms due to his criminal record.
Mm-hmm.
There was also some speculation that he was using a lot of cocaine, but I couldn't really
Oh.
confirm that. Like, a friend of his was like, "He was fucking coked out all the time. It was crazy," but, like, I
But it
wasn't
wasn't like a
r
okay. So,
yeah.
who knows if
Maybe,
drugs
but
were involved.
not surprising. So,
Okay.
none of this is good, and to make it even worse, 2 days before the murders, Huey had left work early and didn't come back until the day after the murder, so he was gone for, like, a few days. Coworkers said that they had noticed some tension between him and Zoraida the day that he had left, and he seemed really upset before he just, like, left work that day.
Hmm.
And then he
Okay.
didn't show up for a couple days, came back. When police spoke with one of Ermelinda's daughters, she said that Huey was a very paranoid man and that his paranoia had greatly increased in the previous weeks. He talked constantly about him being followed, and he would do weird shit, like he would put black tape over their Ring camera doorbell and, like, the red light on the TV, thinking that it was a way for people to be able to monitor him. So he was, like,
He was for sure using cocaine because
super and
paranoia
just
is a symptom. I mean, I say for sure. I don't know, but it seems like that might be related.
right, I think it amplified it, but we'll also get to why he was so paranoid. The same day that detectives spoke with Huey at work, they went to his home, that he shared with Ermelinda because they wanted to speak with her as well.
Sure.
Obviously,
Yeah.
like, I mean, they're just
Absolutely.
checking
Like you
boxes, whatever
interview
they
everyone.
exactly. And so they told her that they were going through Zoraida and Alberto's phones, which had actually been found inside of the house. And they were going to access all of their messages, all of their phone calls. And these officers asked her if any of those threatening messages that they had received could be traced back to her. And she was like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And as the conversation went on, she said that she had actually been on the phone with Huey while he had been talking with some detectives, and she overheard something about him having an affair. And there's body cam footage of all this, and she's like getting upset. And
So
she
she's
claimed,
suggesting she didn't know.
yeah, she claimed that this was the first time she had heard about it, and she didn't know that he had been cheating on her. She knew that he had cheated on her in the past, like early in their relationship, but not recently. And so she was like, "What?" Like talking to these officers in a car, like, "What? What is this information about him cheating?" And like,
Oh man, if she's innocent, that's horrifying.
yeah. And so they asked how, she would react when he was unfaithful to her. Like, did she ended up reaching out to the other women and tell them to stay away? Like, was there drama? And she was like, "No, I am too old for that crap. And it's not the woman's fault. So there is no reason if he cheats on me for him to, like, for me to reach out to the other woman. Like, the problem is him, not the other women."
I mean, I agree with her if the other woman didn't know about her.
Right, exactly. And so then they asked her if she knew Zoraida. She said no, but she recognized the name because she had actually seen it pop up on Huey's phone one night when Zoraida had called like multiple times. That like
Hmm.
he must not have been in the room and she saw someone
Miss
calling.
call,
And
miss call.
it's a unique name. So you're
It's
going to
yeah.
remember Zoraida Bartolome if it pops up on somebody's phone. And they also asked her where Huey was the night before the murders and the night of the murders. And she said that he was home with her both nights. They slept in different parts of the house, but she said that there was no way that he could have left the house without her knowing. And she said that her
Mm,
children could also verify that he was
mm.
was home those nights.
But
So
if you
again,
were
multiple
sleeping,
right?
how do you really know?
Exactly. And
Okay.
so detectives felt like something was just a little sketch with Huey. So
Yeah.
they kept a close eye on him. They were monitoring his whereabouts and they spoke with him again at his workplace. They just kind of kept showing up at his at his workplace to interview him. And they asked if they could get a few things from him. They wanted a DNA sample. They wanted to search his vehicle, which was a GMC Yukon, which is, if you're not familiar, is a huge SUV. And they also wanted to download the contents of his cell phone. And they presented this all in a way to be able to clear him as a suspect. They were
For
like,
sure.
let's just, if you give us this info, it's like the quicker we can clear you, the better.
Check the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. After hemming and hawing for a bit, he did agree to give them a DNA sample. So he did. The officers took it while they were there. But he said that he wanted to speak with an attorney before turning over his phone or his vehicle. And he said that he would go to the police station after work to speak with them. And I mean, that was totally his right
I would have
to
done the same
want
thing.
to consult an attorney. And honestly, it was like the smart thing to do. So
Yep.
totally agree.
Yep. I 100% agree because if he's innocent, protection. If he's not, they'll figure it out anyway.
Exactly. So police had made multiple visits to speak with him, and I'm sure he knew that, he was on their radar as like a prime suspect. So it's like, I got to do whatever I got to
Yeah.
do to like help clear my name.
Yeah.
And so he did end up speaking more with the detectives, and he said that he didn't know anything about the threatening messages Zoraida and Alberto had been receiving. But he did tell them that he had been getting bizarre messages from people who were apparently coming after him, and that he had been getting the messages for quite a while. He was a little vague with the details, but he said that the people messaging him were Bulgarian and that they had ways of tracking him. He agreed to turn over the contents of his phone to the officers, and we're going to circle back to those messages as well. So hang tight, Care Bear.
So he did finally agree to turn over the contents of his phone.
Yeah. On September 19th of 2023,
So 2
which
days
was
later.
yeah, so 2 days
Sorry.
after the murders.
I'm like okay. I need to just calm the fuck down is what I need to do. Okay.
Look, there is some shit and it gets crazier by the fucking second.
I'm in it to win it. Let's go. All right. I'm listening. I'm listening.
So on September 19th, 2023, which was 2 days after the murders, Huey and Ermelinda met with a lawyer before meeting up with his mother at a Target store. I couldn't figure out any more details about what that interaction with the lawyer was, what they were told to do. I just know that they met with an attorney. Ermelinda stayed in the vehicle at the Target so he could talk privately with his mom. And Huey ended up confessing to her, telling her that he killed Zoraida and her family. And he said that he had to do it because people were after him. When she asked him why he had killed the children, he said that he thought they were better off dead than alive without parents.
Oh my God.
Now, there isn't any more information about this conversation, so I'm not sure if his mom was like, "You need to turn yourself in," or "You need to go on the fucking run," or what her reaction was. I mean, I can't imagine finding out that your child killed a family,
I know.
including children and
And
dogs. Like, I would
dogs.
just be like, what the fuck? So I couldn't figure out what her response to that was. There was no other information about that. It just kind of plays into the timeline of all these events. So later that day, as Ermelinda was going to get into her car, which was parked near like the front of their home, police officers were standing next to her vehicle, and they were like, hey, we're actually in the process of getting a search warrant for your car, which was a black Chevy Malibu. They were like, it's now evidence in a murder investigation. And it was evidence because that vehicle was captured on a license plate reader in Romeoville, Illinois at 3:48 the morning of the murders.
Mhm.
And because it was now evidence, she was not able to drive or even touch the car. So they were like, just like back up. she was on her phone. Again, there's body cam footage of this exchange too. So she was just, on her phone, and she said, okay, just turned around and she walked away from them. At some point that night, she ended up leaving with Huey, and they did not return home that night. The
Hmm.
following day, her family was really worried about her, and they ended up reporting her missing to the police. They were concerned that Huey had taken her somewhere against
My
her
God.
will and that she might be in danger.
Oh my
She
God.
apparently told some of them that she was afraid of Huey and that she needed to go with him. And I kept seeing that she actually had reached out to some of them, and she was like, take care of my grandbabies. And
Oh my
just, it was
God.
almost like this kind of goodbye, like weird messages. And so they were really concerned. And so police began looking for Huey and his SUV. A license plate reader in Oklahoma ended up capturing his vehicle that same day.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, this was in Catoosa, Oklahoma, which was over 600 miles from where they lived in Illinois. Not sure what their destination was. I'm assuming Mexico, but who knows? So, police in Oklahoma were notified to be on the lookout for Huey in this vehicle because he was suspected of the murders and now possibly an active kidnapping.
Jesus Christ. So we've got 4 dead humans, 3 dead dogs, and 2 humans on the run.
Mhm.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep. So while they were in Oklahoma, Huey and Ermelinda stopped at a Walmart where they purchased hair dye, a prepaid cell phone, and some other cosmetic items. Surveillance from the store was later reviewed, and it didn't appear that she was being held against her will or under any sort of
God
stress.
damn it.
Actually, as they were kind of wandering very casually through the store, they looked pretty fucking happy and chill, and they were even like holding hands and smiling as they left the store and walked back to his SUV. As they were leaving the parking lot, a Catoosa, Oklahoma police officer had spotted the vehicle and, turned on their lights, attempting to pull them over. But instead of stopping and speaking with the officer, Huey sped off and a chase with police ensued. He ended up getting on Interstate 44, but somehow in all of this, he ended up hitting another vehicle and then crashed into the concrete median in the center of the interstate. So, like where you're driving on the interstate and there's like waist high, like concrete medians, they ended up crashing into that. And so they were in the far left lane. So the crash into the median was on the driver's side of the vehicle, which was basically pinning the driver's side doors closed. So Huey, who was driving, wouldn't have been able, to get out at that point. The SUV burst into flames.
Oh my God.
It's unclear if this fire was from the crash or if Huey set the fire. There were some documents that were released by the police, and there was like, it was insinuated a little bit that he may have started the fire, but I don't think so. I assume that it was from the crash. So that's a little unclear. But as police officers were approaching this burning SUV, yelling for them to get out of the vehicle, ordering them to get down, they heard gunshots.
No.
And
I was afraid of that.
Huey shot Ermelinda in the back of the
Fuck.
head before shooting and killing himself. He allegedly initially shot himself under the chin, but that shot didn't kill him, so he ended up shooting himself a second time in the head, and that shot was fatal. When police approached the vehicle, Ermelinda was still alive. So she was transported by ambulance to a nearby hospital, but she ended up dying from the gunshot wound.
Holy shit.
So you might think that this is where the story ends, Carrie, but it is not even fucking close.
Okay, I'm going to take another drink.
Yeah, you better drink. Initially, It seemed like Ermelinda Paloma was another innocent victim who just got wrapped up in a love triangle. But investigators, as they dug further into this case, uncovered a devious plan, and she was the mastermind
Stop.
behind the whole
Fucking
damn
stop.
thing. Nope.
Was it
She
supposed to end
knew.
with her death?
No, that was not in the works, but she orchestrated the rest of it.
She orchestrated the killing of the entire family and the dogs?
Yeah. She knew about Huey's affair with Zoraida Bartolome and was worried that he would leave her for his younger girlfriend. So I think she was really intimidated by him dating a woman close to his own age. And this wasn't his first hodeo either. He had cheated on Ermelinda multiple times.
That was great.
Instead of breaking up with her shithead cheating fiance, she decided that Zoraida needed to be taken out. And for years, she had been laying out the groundwork for this plan. So, due to his previous affairs, Ermelinda had devised an elaborate catfishing scheme to manipulate her fiance, Huey. Her goal was to basically control him and make him be faithful to her. So, starting in December of 2021, she began sending him messages through fake accounts and phone numbers that she had created. And through these multiple elaborate profiles and personas that she had pulled out of her ass, she got him to believe that he had somehow gotten himself tied into Bulgarian and Mexican crime organizations. These characters that she created included mob bosses, hackers, hitmen, just people tied into this crime organization. And I don't know how it all started. Like, if maybe she painted it like, hey, one of these women that you dated was Bulgarian and she's tied into this and you got yourself wrapped up into this shit. Like, I don't know what groundwork she laid that made him believe that he legitimately was tied into this, but he fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And this plan was not all like loosey goosey. She did a ton of research. She would translate words into Bulgarian to make it all seem legit. And she even installed an app on his phone so she could discreetly track him. And then
Oh my
using that
God.
app, she could put details into messages from these
Oh
strangers
my God.
to convince him that they were following him. So they could be like, we know that you're at this place, whatever. And so he was paranoid as fuck because he's getting these messages thinking these like mobsters basically are following him and tracking him. She told him that there was a mole in this organization who was planning on attacking him, which just, of course, increased his fears and his paranoia. It's all from these messages that she was sending. Go
I
ahead,
have a
Carrie. What's your
feeling.
question?
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just have to share. I have a feeling that I have never felt before. I am
Okay.
simultaneously disgusted and fucking impressed.
She put a lot of effort into that. And I don't understand how you could live with someone and be in a relationship with someone and put the time and effort into sending those messages without the other knowing.
It is massively deceptive. It is a
Yes.
double fucking life. I mean, okay, Huey should not have been having an affair. They did not clearly have an open relationship.
No.
That wasn't cool with Ermelinda, and she was getting back at him. I kind of can't blame her for that. I mean,
Right.
I'm really impressed. But this ended in the lives of 6 people and 3 canines. So this is, I need a break. I need just a moment here because this is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
This is
Isn't this
fucking
wild?
crazy. Irma Linda is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, was she at her breakfast table in her little fucking breakfast nook in the house that she shared with Huey? And she's eating her cornflakes and she's like, you know what would be fun? Fucking with Huey would be fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna
I love
fuck with this
him
guy.
so much that I want him to have eyes only for me. And so the only way that I know how to do that is to create this elaborate ruse of Bulgarian and fucking Mexican. I don't even know. But
Yeah, and how
he used,
those two joined forces is beyond me, but whatever. They did.
and
And they were
I
all
was
out to get him.
convinced, yes. And I was convinced that this guy had a huge cocaine problem, but it was happening from the inside. Maybe he
Yeah.
wasn't even using cocaine.
But if he did, it probably just like
Oh, it
amplified that
amplified.
paranoia and that anxiety. And why she thought that like instead of just leaving this motherfucker, like he's never gonna be faithful to me, whatever. She was like, you know what? I'm gonna make him so paranoid and scared shitless that he won't cheat on me again. Like it's just such a weird mindset. And that like in the process I'm going to destroy a family. Like it just like I said it just snowballed. It like went out of control.
Women, and I stand by this statement, are batshit fucking crazy.
Agreed.
Not all women,
But
but
they can be
some of
fucking
us that give the rest of us a really bad
conniving.
name. Conniving and fuck, because we know how to massively mess with those emotions. Jesus Christ.
I said it was
This
crazy.
one is fucking wild.
Isn't it nuts? And so she had been sending threatening messages to Zoraida, telling her that Huey was dangerous and seeing him was putting her children in danger, which was
I would argue that that's 100% true because they're all dead. Like,
yeah.
they did not survive this.
And about a month before the murders, Alberto had also began receiving text messages from an anonymous person, and they said things like, quote, "This stupid girl will be the reason you have no children." End quote.
Oh
Yeah,
my
like
God.
yeah, a lot of these texts when you read them now and these messages, it's like, holy shit. Like knowing how things ended is like, fuck. And so poor Alberto was basically like, look, I know about the affair. Stop messaging me and leave my fucking kids out of this. And I mean, it truly seems like he was just an easygoing guy
Oh,
who
God.
was an amazing dad to his boys. Like they were his entire world. That was his only focus through all of this. It just breaks my heart to know that he was like doing everything that he could for them. And
When he was being chased down that hallway, James, I'm fairly certain that his last thoughts were, I just have to protect my
yeah,
boys.
I've got to get on
I
that
have to
bed. I need
protect
to
my.
lay on top of my babies and keep them from being shot. And he just got gunned down, unfortunately, before he could get to them, which is the
Fuck.
saddest goddamn thing. According to police documents regarding the case, quote, Ermelinda, acting as one of her fictional characters, frequently referenced Nathaniel's relationship with Ermelinda. Nathaniel is Huey. She would encourage Huey to be faithful in his relationship, to stop speaking with other women, to treat Ermelinda nice, and to engage in sexual intimacy with Ermelinda.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What?
So I'm not sure why Huey didn't think it was strange that a dangerous crime organization was concerned about his
Thank
infidelity,
you.
and certainly why they would care about him pleasing his fiance
And
sexually.
so concerned
But
about Irma Linda's happiness.
exactly. But apparently this didn't throw up any red flags for him, and he just was like, "Oh my god."
Okay, well, hang on for a second. Huey was played. Now, he's culpable, but Huey was being manipulated to the nth degree. And if that wasn't the start of it and it was sort of woven in, I can understand why he was like, Jesus Christ. what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't even occur to him to be like,
Right.
wait a
That's true.
minute.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
But if
mean?
it's just like, you need to sleep, you need to have more
You
sex
need to
with your,
have
I would be,
sexual intimacy with your
be
Irma
like,
Linda. I mean, if that was the first, like, I would have been, I mean, if it were me, I would have been like, who is this?
he might not have been a smart man. It's hard to say.
I mean, maybe not, but he was definitely manipulated and he didn't know it. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah, he
his
was up to his
responses were,
eyeballs in this shit.
yes.
And so the police reports also stated that communications with Huey eventually led Ermelinda to convince him that he was under constant surveillance by this crime organization and that the leaders questioned his loyalty and trustworthiness. So, based on years of communication, his responses seemed to indicate that he fully believed the information being fed to him by Ermelinda, but did not know it was her. You know, he obviously didn't know that it was her that he was communicating with, but he believed all of this. So this is all highlighted in the police reports. They're like reading through all this shit. Like it's pretty obvious that he ate it up.
Believed it.
Like
Yeah.
he believed
Because
all
he
of it. And
trusted her.
yeah. So Ermelinda was frustrated that the messages that she had been sending to Zoraida and her husband hadn't led to her ending things with Huey. Like that was her goal, was for to send those threatening messages and that somehow Zoraida would be like, okay, I have to cut things off. Like I'm being threatened. When that didn't work, she amped up her game. On September 14th, which would have been 3 days before the murders, using one of her fake personas, Ermelinda sent Huey messages convincing him that Zoraida was the mole that she had mentioned and that who was targeting him. To
Oh my
protect
God.
himself, he had to act first and take her out. And if he didn't do this job, you know, the cartel would likely come after him. So he's like, holy shit, I have to do this. And the messages that she was sending instructed him to make the house look like a robbery that was done by some sloppy kids and that he shouldn't worry because, quote, many murders go unsolved. So it was kind of like just make it look like some kids trash a place, ended up killing him. You're going to be fine because most murders don't even get solved anyway. It's no big deal. Remember when coworkers told police that Huey had left work early 2 days before the murders?
Yep.
Well, that's because he was planning Zoraida's murder with one of Ermelinda's personas named Turtle. Yep, Turtle was one of the personas that she had created in this crime organization. And they were basically researching the logistics of the murders. They were figuring out the layout of Zoraida's neighborhood. They were trying to figure out where cameras were, what the best way to access the home would be, how to move in and out of the house without leaving any DNA or other evidence. And they even learned that the house behind Zoraida's house was vacant, which was likely why they entered through the back door. I mean, that may have been the more likely way to go anyway, but there was nobody behind them. So they're like, that seems like the best way
Yeah.
to access the house. And he said, or he told Turtle that he would have his fiance drive him there, not realizing that he was actually talking to her and not Turtle. Like, it's just, this is all so bizarre to me. Also, do you remember how the police told Ermelinda that her Chevy Malibu was evidence in the murder case?
Yes.
They had obtained ring camera footage, cell tower, and iPass data, which, you know, like for traveling on
Yeah.
the interstates, and info from flock cameras, which I
From
didn't know what
what
these
cameras?
were. Flock,
Flock.
FLOCK. Yeah, like a flock of birds. These are the cameras that I've at least noticed more and more like along roadways that have like solar panels on the top.
Yeah.
If you've
Yeah.
noticed, yeah, they're
Yeah.
popping up more and more. Like some neighborhoods have them, some are used by police, some are like by businesses.
Hmm.
And so they're called flock cameras. They can detect things like gunshots. They have license plate readers, and they can detect the features of passing cars, like not only like the make, model, and color, but also unique things like if there's a dent in the bumper or if they have a missing hubcap. Like they can take note of that information, and if set up, they can be connected to databases. So like if there was like an FBI database that like they had uploaded a vehicle for a wanted serial killer or a murderer, like it can be sent through that. And so if somebody passes by one of those, it'll flag and notify law enforcement. So when you see those,
Wow.
it's pretty cool. And so as I was reading about those, like some people are like, Big Brother's everywhere. Yeah, of course they fucking are, but it also could help stop a murderer if they drive through your town. It notifies police. I think they're really cool. And I saw one on a walk the other day in my town. And so I'm like, fuck yeah, I love it.
Wow. That's pretty cool. If you don't have anything to hide, it's not a big deal.
So now when I see those, I'm like,
Holy
I dig
shit.
it. So anyway, all of those resources captured Ermelinda's car traveling from their home in Streamwood, Illinois, to Zoraida and Alberto's home in Romeoville, which was about 40 miles away, either the night or early morning of the murders, however you choose to look at it. So it was like
Okay.
early morning hours, but some people would say like the night of. Um,
Okay.
so ring footage shows Huey getting out of the car and then re-entering the car on the passenger side. And who was driving? Ermelinda.
Ermelinda.
Yep, she was driving. Miss, I knew nothing about him having an affair and we were home all weekend. Fucking lied to detectives. So not only did she orchestrate this whole crime, she drove her fiance to murder an entire family. And while he didn't realize it, he was doing it under her direct orders. Like this is all
Sophie doesn't like this.
mm-mm.
She don't
She
like
does not.
this.
This is all fucked up and she knows it. My dog knows it.
Knows it.
But now she needs to shut the fuck up.
Ermelinda is the fucking devil.
Yeah. Like I said, she talking to detectives was like, I didn't what? I knew he cheated before. Like turn on the waterworks. Like you
Like
can
a
watch these videos of her and like you just want to punch her in the goddamn head because she let two little fucking boys get killed.
no, she didn't let. She orchestrated their murders.
And even in like messages that came from these mob people, it says take out the adults. I think it said like take out the dogs if you have to, take out the adults, and then kill the kids.
Oh my
Like it
god,
was
she's a fucking mother.
it was never in doubt that those boys were
We're
gonna
gonna
be
die.
part of this.
That is fucking vile. That is vile.
From what I can gather, police verified that none of Ermelinda's family knew about, first of all, like her catfishing scheme that she had against Huey for years. Like, none of them were aware that she was doing that. And they were not aware of his or her or their or whatever, no one's involvement in the murder. So they all thought that she and Huey were asleep the night of the murders, and they all believed that Ermelinda had been kidnapped and forced to leave against her will when the couple fled. And it makes me so sad for her children too, because
Right.
and her
Right.
grandkids like finding out that their grandmother or their mother was the puppet
The
master of
fucking
such
mastermind.
a horrific crime. And it's like she had 5 grandbabies, but was okay with killing 2 innocent
She
boys.
had
And
how many children? Do you know how many children she had?
she had 5. 5 kids and
That
5 grandkids at this time.
that's disgusting. Does she have any sons?
I don't know. I don't know. I only saw mentions of daughters, but
I'm
I
not
don't
angry
know if
with
she
you.
had any sons.
I'm not angry with you. I just, I'm offended that a fucking female did this. This is sad.
Following the murders, Huey had messaged his co conspirator mob contact, again, Turtle, saying that he was concerned that he hadn't taken Zoraida and Alberto's phones the night of the murder, which is pretty valid because the messages on her phone led them right to Huey. I mean, there was like no mistake that she was having an affair. Basically, every piece of this plan and the horrific sequence of events are documented in a long trail of evidence in this case. It's really wild. And I've said it before in other cases that we've covered, but like when we're doing research for the episodes that we're doing, some of them have such little information. With older cases, we rely on newspaper articles and, sometimes court documents. Like with the Johnny Pius case that I just did, it was from 1979. It was all newspapers. There wasn't a ton of information.
Yeah.
And then there's cases like this one where there is so much footage and like digital information. There's police body cam footage of the officers first finding the murdered family and the interviews that they had with Nathaniel Huey and Ermelinda and the chase with police that ended with them dying, plus surveillance footage from Walmart and just like all of the texts and messages between all of them in this like extensive catfishing bullshit. It's just wild to me. Like it's all there. There is no question what happened. Just no shortage of evidence in this case, which is just crazy how it can
Yeah.
be so different. And although everyone involved in this case is no longer alive,
Right?
unfortunately, I don't mean to say that like it's just like, ugh, like no one is alive to share their version of what happened, but there's
Right.
still no mystery as to how this tragedy unfolded because it's all documented.
So she fucking created this entire world over the course of 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah. And so basically I think she was like set like laying the foundation that like if he cheats on me, I can spin it and get him to stop. Like she wanted to make it so he was so scared to do anything wrong that he remained faithful. Again, instead of just saying, like, if you cheat on me again, we're done, motherfucker, which is what
That
she
is,
should have done.
yeah, that is
She said it.
bonkers.
And then, like, once he started cheating again and she started seeing messages from Zoraida, like, and she knew that they were having an affair, it escalated. And so then she, like, increased it. And I was like, well, now I have to take her out. So I've kind of like planted the seed about this mole. And so now I can tell him exactly who it is. He's going to take her out for me.
Exactly.
Like, it's
Why
just so fucked up.
why do women and men want to be with people that don't want to be with them?
I don't know.
Breakups are hard, right?
Yeah.
Infidelity is crushing. But if somebody is unfaithful to you and they don't commit to the commitment and they don't protect the sanctity of what of the bond that you have as as like two people in a romantic relationship, why do you want to be with that
Yeah.
person? Like I
And when
don't
they
get that.
show you continuously that they're not going to change.
I'm going to manipulate him to kill her and take her out and then he'll be all mine.
Yeah. And so what makes this case even sadder to me is that Huey likely died not ever knowing that his fiancee Ermelinda was behind all of this. That she had been messing with his head for years, which led him to be responsible for the deaths of 6 people.
Oh my god.
And with the deaths of Huey and Ermelinda, that's once they were dead, that's kind of where the
That's
case
it.
ended.
Yeah, cuz it ended with them.
yeah, there weren't like years of trials and sentencing hearings that we cover in a lot of other cases. And just there was like this mountain of evidence for investigators to sort through, and just a ton of loss for the people that cared about these 6 people that are now gone. So that is the tragic fucking case of the senseless murders of Zoraida Bartolome, Alberto Rolón, and their 2 sons, Adriel and Diego. And I'm focusing on those 4 and leaving it
Innocent.
at that. Yeah.
Yeah, just having an affair does not mean that it's okay to kill someone.
Right.
That's not a thing.
That's when
That's not a
you
thing.
either leave someone or you file for fucking divorce. That's what you do. You do not murder a goddamn family.
I'm stunned. How is this
Yeah.
not? I've never heard this case before.
It was one that I stumbled upon, and then as I was reading it, I was like,
Are you fucking kidding
"Holy
me?
shit."
Yeah.
I was floored.
Yeah. Rightfully so.
I'll say it. It's a fucking doozy.
That is a fucking doozy. Today, I think this is the most dooziest case we've ever covered.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that's going to stay with me for a while.
Yeah.
Man alive.
I just wanted to like snag those boys and protect
Protect
them
them.
and the dogs. Ugh.
What a story. And if you're listening and you're still here, thank you. And share this
Yeah.
episode. Let's make sure that we continue to protect the memories of Zoraida and Alberto and Adriel and Diego. And Huey.
Yeah.
He was fucking he was a used and abused.
He was a shithead because he cheated, but he was manipulated.
Yes.
And
Ermelinda is the villain here.
yeah, for sure.
Fucking A.
So yeah, this was a wild one. So like I said, there's a ton of footage on YouTube, like a lot of video footage of, just body cam footage and police footage of like the day that they were on the high speed chase with police in Oklahoma. Like there's so much stuff. So if you're interested, feel free to check that out on YouTube.
Yeah.
Speaking of YouTube, feel free to subscribe to our channel.
Yeah.
We're also, on Facebook and Instagram and Blue Sky and all the places.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
do a quick search for Crime Will Tell. You'll find us in all the places. We've got a new website called CrimeWillTellPod.com. Feel free to check it out. We've got merch if you want to order something for yourself or for your family. We got all kinds of cool shit on there. We thank you guys for listening. We appreciate your support. Feel free to share the podcast with other true crime fans or anyone that you think might enjoy listening. We appreciate you so much. And with that, goodbye, Carrie.
Goodbye, James.
I'm going to take my bra off. Get real comfy.
Fuck you.
I just want to squeeze the fuck out of that guy.
Just squeeze the fuck out of him.
You're a pretty cougher.
Yeah. His role's attractive.
I'm going to start that all the fuck over.
Okay.
I needed to drink more bourbon.
So you're gross.
Hello.
No, you need to tell her to stop that shit right now.
Stop. Just stop it.